Okay, everyone, and welcome to another artwork professional development session from Studio to Spotlight Media Strategies for Artists with Liam Nixon. Liam Nixon joined the City of Lethbridge's Communications and Engagement team in November 2023. In his role, he oversees several key departments, including parks and cemeteries, recreation and culture, and community social development. Prior to joining the city, Liam spent nearly 2 decades working in Southern Alberta newsrooms, where he covered local, national, and international stories. His journalism career earned him multiple regional and national accolades, including the prestigious 2015 Burt Cannings Award for Best Small Market Newscast in Canada. Please welcome Liam Nixon, everyone. Thank you so much, Liam.
Hook. That one sentence where if you had one sentence to like the smallest elevator pitch you can think of, if you had one sentence that you think would hook someone into being like, okay, fine, I'll stop and pay attention, tell me more. Try to put that in your email subject line because those do get noticed. After 20 years, I've seen so many things come through. Some of the best stories I ever did, it was just one of those, well, that can't be true. That's fun. Let's click on that. And a week or two later, I have a story that I wouldn't have had if I just on a busy day went delete, because it was just like, Lethbridge Alberta art project next month. Like, cool. No. So try to be as engaging as you can right off the bat. When it comes to the longer pitch after that, personalize it. I told my reporters when I was broadcasting, I tell the department heads that I work with now, we need to explain the why. Explain why people should care about this. Yeah, you have to put the what in there because that's super important. But you have to really explain to people why they should be caring about this. So really the pitch is, I didn't want to say the art of the sale because I think that's a Donald Trump book. But you really want to personalize as much as possible and really hit on that emotion, right? To draw out that like, this is something you should be coming to do. Keep it short in the email. And then if you have a press release that you're including with your initial pitch, put that in as an attachment. So think of the body of your email as the best of the best and greatest hits of your overall story and your overall project. Put that in your pitch because you'll get noticed easier if you have a good subject line. But if they open the email and it's half a page long or a page long, that will be your next barrier to being like, I do not have time for this. No. So catchy subject line, best of the best, 4 or 5 sentences, get right to it. Why is this important? Hey, if you want more, check out the attachment. So kind of get right into it. After you've pitched, one email or phone call reminder is okay. Some people are a little nervous to say, well, did they get it? You're trying to get this in front of them. So if you don't hear back, email them again. Sometimes you just won't hear back, and that's just the unfortunate reality of news, as again, resources have shrunk. There's still a lot of news out there, so if they're on a busy news cycle, they might just not do feature stories for a couple of weeks, and it kind of is what it is. If you have a project that's not a one-off and it is recurring, you can always try again a few weeks later. There's nothing wrong with kind of a semi-regular reach out if it's something that is going to be going for a long time. But you can have the best subject line, you can have the best pitch, you can have the best everything, and you might not hear back. It's just the unfortunate reality of how media works. But all of this will certainly increase your chances of hearing back. And then you get into the full press release. So this is, they've loved your headline or your subject. They thought that was super cool. Your pitch was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's read the whole thing. So they've now opened up your story about your project and they're reading it. A catchy headline and opening sentence. Again, think of it again as your subject line and your first line of your actual pitch. In the story, it's the same thing. I would tell reporters, you have about 7 or 8 seconds in that opening, either line or emotional soundbite to convince the viewer to spend the next minute, 50 seconds watching the rest of that story. If you don't make it interesting right away, especially now with attention spans of people on their phone while also watching the news, and you will lose people if you don't kind of wow them with something right away. So figure out a way to really sell it in that first sentence or two. Then you can get into the summary paragraph of the who, the what, the why, the where, the when, all that good stuff. But don't lead with that. So, your opening sentence wouldn't be, coming up on Saturday, January 26th at the Casa Gallery, there is this project. Like, so many people do that, and it's just not interesting. It's not engaging. Yeah, it's important information, but get to that a little later on. Wow them right off the bat instead. Other things you should really always try for: a personal quote from the artist, which in most cases would be yourselves, I'm sure. But anytime you can get someone else telling someone how cool your thing is on your behalf, awesome, right? So if you have a collaborator or a community partner that's been part of it, if your project is about someone, get the subject of your project included in that as well. You will never go wrong having other people tell your story for you. It's good allies to have. Again, when I'm working with city department, I'm like, sometimes when people hear something from the city of Lethbridge, it's like, oh, it's the city saying this and that. But if we get an expert, if we get a police officer with lived experience, if we get a community member who has benefited from a project we're trying to get more funding for from the provincial government, if we can get them involved in our stories to be like, this isn't the city saying this is literally these people with lived experience telling you why what we're doing is probably worth doing. Same thing for you folks, anytime you can have someone else telling the awesome things about your project, it just gets more buy-in from people because it's not coming from you. You obviously have a naturally a self-serving interest in telling your story for exposure. So if you can, spice it up with some other voices in there, it's always a good idea. This one you would think is common sense, but you would be amazed at how much it's not. Provide your contact info and be available a minute after you have sent that press release, because I can't tell you how many times in news, it's my most frustrating thing. We would get this thing from AHS, from the city, from school boards. Oh, this is this thing. Media contact, name and number. Cool. Call them. Oh, that person's actually off for the next 4 days. Okay, is there someone else who can talk about this thing that you just put in our inbox that you said you want coverage for? No, that person's a spokesperson. It'll have to be next week. When you're ready to send your press release, be ready for the next 1, 3, 5 days after. Make sure you have availability in your calendar and in your schedule. The worst thing you can do for yourself, especially if it's the first time media reaches out to you, if they reach out to you and it's like, actually, can we do, it's Monday, can we do like Thursday afternoon? You'll get that'll be in that reporter's head forever. Next time I see an email from them, nope, I don't have time to, if I'm gonna call them after they've reached out to us, they should be available to speak right away. So just keep that in mind, because I'd say 70% of the time we'd have media contact and it'd be like, no, they can't do it. Seems really weird to do with their name then. So and then make it an easy yes. Make it hard for them to say no, right? Reporters are so busy these days because they're doing more and more with less and less. So anytime you can kind of serve it to them on a golden platter and be like, here you go, this is local content that you are wanting. The last bullet point I should have started with, don't do their job for them, but also kind of do their job for them. Because if you can go to them and be like, I have this press release, I have this person going to interview, I'm the artist, I will also interview with you, boom, boom, silver platter. You literally just need to show up with your camera or your microphone or your pen and paper or your tablet and talk to me. You've done 75% of their job for them. Provide ready to use materials as part of that. So in your press release, if it's a visual project, include a couple of sample photos, online sites like Lethbridge News Now, My Lethbridge Now, I think they can do a lot of interviews over the phone, but they always want visuals to put in the online stories as well. So if you can supply photos in your initial reach out, that's just another thing that they'll look at and be like, oh, I have to chase a photo. Yes, that checks another mental box for them to be like, you hate to simplify it like this, but the reporter will be like, well, this is easy. Like, I have to do 2 stories today. Here's one of them right here. Like, this person's done 75% of my job for me. Right? So the more you can offer them that, again, the better chance you're gonna have of them taking you up on that offer. They'd be silly not to, honestly. I wish the reality was that more reporters would put more emphasis on things like this. It's hit or miss depending on the reporter or the newsroom, but again, the easier you can make it for them, the easier your entryway into that world can be.
I have a quick question on
Yeah,
that.
please.
So do they, if they get an email, and like, what is their ability to choose what they go and cover? Like, are they gonna be like, oh, they made this super easy for me, I'm gonna fit this in on Thursday? Or is it the person above them that determines what they do and don't go to?
Yeah, it's a great question. It depends on where you are. I always said it when I would be interviewing prospective journalists, one of the first things I would say to them if the interview was going well and I was starting to view them as a viable candidate, I made it crystal clear to my reporters. My company's favorite line in my contract for the 10 years I was there was that, one at the bottom that says, and other duties as required. So, I'm producing newscasts, I'm anchoring newscasts, I'm doing live interviews, I'm mentoring journalists, I'm hiring journalists, I'm firing journalists, I'm filing stories that are big in Lethbridge, like a police officer parking a truck on top of a live deer. We're doing that story for national. So I've got all these other things going on. So I would say to prospective reporters, when we have our morning meeting every morning, you better have 2 stories ready to go. Because it's not my job to go out there and find all of Southern Alberta news to fill 24 minutes, 5 nights a week. That cannot be my job. I will always have stories that I will assign to show up like a deer in headlights and don't have a story. But I made it very clear to them that they are responsible for breaking their own stories. Not every newsroom is like that. It seems like the bigger market you go to, the more you are placed, something is placed in front of you by the assignment editor and they say, go do this. But I don't know an assignment editor alive that wouldn't want a bit of a break every now and again, and a reporter coming and be like, hey, we've got this, news that people are getting bummed out about. It's murders, this kind of cool thing going on. I could just slip out to that door before the meeting. You don't have to see me all day. Next time you see me, it'll be a finished product. Almost every assignment editor I know would be like, go do that now. So, yeah, the level of autonomy depends on where you work, but it was always something that I encouraged, for sure. Yeah. In terms of crafting the story, so you're sitting down to write the story, and again, I'm talking to a room of artists, so a lot of this will probably find pretty commonsensical anyways. But again, what's your hook? What makes your project or story unique, right? I always loved enterprise news. My favorite thing in journalism, the thing that I got out of bed for, was breaking news. If there was a big breaking story, we could have it first and have it right. That is what got me to the newsroom every day. I love that stuff. Breaking news doesn't happen in Southern Alberta every day. So the next best thing would be when we would do a story, then 3 days later, every other news outlet was doing a version of that story that we did first and didn't come from a press release or like a city press release or an AHS press release. It was local, it was original, it was something that we did and we did ourselves. And then you see everyone else playing copycat. I used to cheers scotch at night when things like that would happen. So anytime you can have a uniqueness to what you're offering and something that will just be different from the norm is always a good idea. And things that can make it unique. Is it the first of its kind? Is it challenging societal norms? Does it celebrate culture and heritage locally, Southern Alberta, or otherwise? Include that human angle. People love a story about people. There's always characters to be found, right? Another thing I would do in interviews with journalists is get them to tell me a story that they had done in a previous spot or in their college that revolved around a person. Who's the favorite character you ever had in the story? Because people will forget small details. They'll forget, where did this happen or what time, or if you have an impactful character as the center point of your story, your project, your press release, it's hard to forget an impactful character as part of the story. So whenever you have the ability to include that, do your best to do that. And then that again, so what question for your audience? Pardon my French, but it used to be at our morning meetings, I would say, okay, who gives a rhymes with hit to my reporters, right? They would pitch a story. I said, okay, so who gives a poop? Tell me why you want to do this. Who cares? So they would have to, again, do what I'm suggesting you do and pitch to me and sell me, well, this is why we should do this story. And that's something that you want to keep in mind when you're crafting your story as well, is why am I telling this and what should the message be? What's really going to impact people? The kiss, keep it simple, silly. I think it's supposed to be keep it simple, stupid, but I find that offensive. So I put it, keep it simple, silly. Boil your story down to 3 or 4 major points and figure out a way to tell your story with those points. And I'm sure when it comes to art, there's so much that can go into a project, and you want to, like, your gut instinct might be to tell the entire background and where the idea came to you and how it came about, and where you were, and just, again, in the interest of making sure that the people that you want reading this read the entire thing and come away with a, okay factor. keep it as succinct as possible. There's something called the 2793 model. So we talk about it in terms of the city as key messages. So when I'm prepping a department head to talk about, Whoop Up Drive going 170 kilometers an hour full time, we'll sit there with key messages and say, here are the 3 or 4 key messages that we need the public to know. And we have what's called the 2793. So 27 words delivered in 9 seconds, and then you try to limit it to 3 of those messages whenever possible. So it's a good model to remember that your average answer should be about 9 to 10 seconds. Obviously, there's exceptions to every rule, but if you start going on a soliloquy and giving a 2.5 minute answer, you're making the reporter's job super hard because they then have to sit through that whole thing and pull out. They're only going to use like 8 seconds anyways. So before you go into the interview, have your key messages that no matter what he asks me or she asks me or they ask me, I'm going to be able to meander to get to what I want the public to know and get to one of my key messages. So again, it's you know your work best, sell it, find a way to get to the parts that you think are the most important and the most meaningful. And you can figure out a way to really hit on those, really find out what you're asked in an interview. The average interview on art isn't going to be, hard hitting or difficult, or they're not going to be looking for a gotcha moment. So you'll be able to, a lot of the questions will be, tell me about your project. That's a good one, but it's also a dangerous one because that's what can prep you for a 2-minute, like, well, what do you want to know? I'll tell you everything. No, be ready for those generic questions and be ready for a specific answer to a generic question, if that makes sense. Use plain language, avoid industry jargon. I don't know how much jargon there is in the arts world. I just legitimately don't know if there is, but try and stay away from terms that your arts friends will know and the arts community will know, but the average person at home is like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So this is more relevant for when I'm dealing with, engineers talking about a bridge, or water engineers talking about why we need a water rationing action plan and all these big words they use. I'm like, people are literally going to think you're speaking a different language. So say what you said again, but like for dummies kind of thing. So if there is industry jargon, stay away from it. Just keep it conversational. Pretend you're talking to a family member, a friend who isn't necessarily an artist. How would you explain what you want to explain to that person in your life? Then get emotional, man. Strong images, short, impactful clips. If it's a recorded or something that has video and audio, get those clips in there. Or in writing terms, find punchy ways to get across the message that you're trying to get across. And anytime you can play on people's emotions, characters, and emotions, those are the 2 things that any story will do pretty well, at least in the news world, when you're always going for clicks, emotion, and character-driven stories. Those are things that will always serve you well, because evoking emotion really helps the audience also feel more invested in your story, because we all know if you see a movie with a strong character, a lot of emotion, you're more tied to it, right? You come out of it feeling like, oh, there's just that different attachment to it. Exact same thing when you're crafting your story about your projects. Make sense still?
I have a quick question on the first point.
Yeah.
You mentioned toasting scotch when you get a first of its kind story. Is there an example of that in the arts that you can think of?
I mean, we did art stories that weren't necessarily breaking news, but that we did, and then other people found out about them. And they wouldn't be ones that would blow the doors off any news or anything, but we got word of when they were wrapping the boxes around downtown with the art. We found out about that first, and we sent a reporter out for the day with a crew that was wrapping these boxes, right? And I mean, the overall message of the story is like, on a surface level, it's like it was gray and boring, and now it's kind of bright. But when you involve the artist, when you involve the person who came up with that idea to do this wrapping, explain the why, all that sort of stuff. So we did that first, and then in the next few days after that, we started seeing it on all the other news outlets, and that's why we're like, yeah, it feels good to be the first ones to do that, right? So art and breaking news don't typically live in the same realm. But we had a ton of like news stories that were just, I could go on for hours about the news stuff. But yeah, in the art world, you just always want to be looking for things that other people aren't looking for and bring it out to people in a way people are going to care. And if you can do that and then see it copied, it's a great feeling. Yeah. And the AAC always has a ton of good initiatives on the go that you qualify. Just saying.
Alright. We have content. We'll give it to you. Anyone can call us up and say, I need to fill
Mhm.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
I can find artists.
Yeah. 100%. Or you pick up the phone and go, hey, your morning show, you got 3 hours worth of stuff to talk about next Thursday? No, let me tell you something I can do for you, right?
We have
So,
standing.
yeah,
morning show.
there you go.
Will goes to this monthly to the morning show.
Yeah.
There's CJOC.
Ah, nice. No.
But if anybody else wants to talk, they can put them in contact. We would talk to them.
100%. Okay, so you've done your pitch, you've submitted your story, a reporter's reached out to you and been like, hey, I want to talk to you about this. Once you get your heart rate back down, you start preparing, right? Preparation is key for anything in life, and getting ready for an interview is absolutely no different. People will be able to tell if you have just come and figure you're gonna fly by the seat of your pants, or if you've come prepared, knowing what you want to say, especially with those key messages. So get those key messages that are short and memorable. There will be common questions when it comes to art stories. Things like, what inspired this project? Why should people care? Why is it important? How is it funded? People love to ask money questions all the time. And, you know, again, I would tell my reporters anytime they're going to a city hall story and there's a new program coming, how much is it costing, where are they getting the money from? Because people care how their tax dollars are spent, right? But it never fails to surprise and impress me that reporters will ask about money in a lot of different ways, because it's interesting, right? People want to know how much did that cost. It's just something that money is something that's so built into our very existence that more often than not, you will be asked, how was it funded? Maybe it didn't involve funding. That's an easy answer. Maybe you self-funded it. Cool, how'd you do that, right? Just be prepared to talk. If there's a funding element, have good answers for that. Be prepared to know what you want to say about that.
Very careful.
Well, yeah, if your funder is shy, or you check with the funder as well to see what they may be okay and not okay with. But again, this is why you prepare. This is part of that preparation. Anticipate you might get asked that. The worst thing you can say is that, yeah, no comment. Yeah, I don't want to, no comment on that, because any good journalist will be like, that's weird. I should maybe pull up that story a little bit. Why don't they want to talk about that, right? And all of a sudden, your conversation about a cool art project turns into something else that it shouldn't, right? So, again, this is where that preparation is really important. They might always ask, what's next for you? Journalists are taught very early on, and every interview with a forward-looking question. So if you have something else in the hopper, hey, bonus 2 for 1. You're getting coverage for the thing you're doing. If you have something else in the works, plant that seed. And when the interview is over, that's going to be done in a year and a half. We'll talk again then. So you're already, paving the way to get your next project in there. In terms of your delivery, speak clearly and conversationally as much as possible. Try to avoid ahs, likes, things like that. Keep your answers short. Again, it says 30 to 60 seconds. In an art interview, you can get away with a bit longer answers, but for that, I would even cut it down as much as you can, 12 to 15 seconds if you can, for your answers. If you're doing one that is on camera, so, radio and print, they can do over the phone, they can do, you're sitting down, it's not all that resource heavy. If you're doing one on camera, there's a few extra things that I always like to tell people. The most important one, don't stare down the barrel of the camera, because it makes you look like a complete psychopath. If you can imagine, you're sitting at home watching, and the person being interviewed is just like, well, I started thinking of this when I was 6, and then my mom said I should do it, and my dad said he was sure. The people at home are just like, coming to my TV to strangle me right now. So address whomever asked the question. So if it's a one-on-one interview, talk to the reporter, pretend the camera's not even there. If you're doing something that gets multiple interview requests, giddy up, good for you. If there's 5 or 6 members of the media there and they're in a semicircle around you and there's a camera here, microphones in your face, a lapel on your jacket, and you're standing here, address whomever asks the question, just like you would in a normal setting. If you ask me a question, I wouldn't say, thanks for the question. Well, I'll tell you why that is, and look over here. You're having a group conversation at that point. The cameras don't exist, the microphones don't exist. You're just holding court. So whoever asks you, look at them. Sit and stand straight. I don't do a great job of that, but sit or stand straight. Don't bob and weave. It is the bane of every reporter's existence because you are taught early in journalism school how you frame an interview subject. There has to be talking space on this side of them, get this much head space. So they have you framed perfectly. But the natural thing for a lot of people to do is once they get nervous, they start doing this. And so it either comes off that you're watching the interview and the person's going off and on frame, or the reporter has to sit there and follow you like a bad spotlight at a theater. And it's not conducive to a good looking interview, right? So as much as you can, once you're planted, try to avoid the, Muhammad Ali bobbing and weaving like someone's trying to punch you. Try not to, don't do the Ricky Bobby special where he just doesn't know what to do with his hands. And so they just do this. Hand talking is okay. Clearly, I'm a big proponent of it. Don't feel like you have to be a piece of plywood and stand there like this, and try not to be directing a choir. Somewhere in between there. Again, it comes back to that natural way that you would normally speak, right? Being on camera for a lot of people for the first time is anything but a natural feeling, and I get that. Some people run away from cameras like you're holding a bomb. But if it is your first time, just try to remember you're having a conversation. Forget the camera, forget that you're just talking. However you normally express yourself, it'll come across more naturally on TV. So just be who you are. If you talk like this, that's kind of weird, but try to bring it down a little bit more reserved. But by and large, just be as natural and conversational as you can. Finally, after the interview. So we want to thank, share, and archive. So, I mean, we all seem like very polite people. I'm sure it would be in your natural courtesy to thank someone anyways, but it's never a bad thing to thank the journalist right there and then. But also a quick email or phone call a day or two after, just to be like, hey, thanks again. Really enjoyed that conversation. Let me know if you need any other information. If there's a question if you walked away like, oh, I should have asked this, follow up with an email. I have this next project coming up. Don't forget, 6 months down the road, whatever. A well-timed email or phone call goes a long way. If you want to make it more public, you could, do a social media post and tag them. Again, that's one of those things you should know beforehand whether or not they're cool with that. But you could send them a direct message on social media, however you want to reach out. Or reach out afterwards just to say thanks. Not only shows thanks, but it can also open up other doors. Share the coverage. Every news organization now puts things out on the web, right? Share, post it to yours, post to public pages, post it anywhere you can to just keep increasing that reach. Include the story link. It's not hilarious, but it's funny to me how sometimes you can be like, oh, I did this awesome story. You guys should go watch it. Cool, any chance you want to throw a hyperlink in there for me where I can just click it and it will take me there and I don't have to go hunting for it? So if you
do that.
What's that?
If you're CTV.
Oh no, I know, Mark Zuckerberg's correct.
Yeah.
No, I know, believe me, we went through that.
Yeah.
No, but what you can do is, so in that case, so for those who don't know, Mark Zuckerberg a few years ago refused a federal government initiative where they wanted these major companies that would just allow people to share our stories, like literally stories that I would put together. People could just post them on Facebook far and wide and you get no time. Yeah, exactly. So they're able to do that and make money off it. And me as the original reporter and Global as the company that owns the rights to that story gets nothing. So the federal government was like, look, you want to play in the sandbox, you're gonna pay like everybody else. Mark Zuckerberg was like, I don't want to do that. So he just made it so that you can't look at Canadian news on Facebook. And it's been the case for a while now, right? What you can do to get around that, so do a screen capture. So go to, because the news site, so again, I'll defer to Global just because it's the world I know. Global Lethbridge will have that story on their website. Do a print screen, grab it, turn it into an image, put that image on your social media post, then link to the Global News site. So go to the story on the Global News site, put that link in there. So you've got the screen capture of the story, but then they can still link to it directly to the media site. And it helps the media site out because every click they get a couple of pennies in their bank account too.
And if you link it like that, does Facebook actually allow that link?
Yes, because Facebook can't stop you from posting a link to the global news.
Okay.
You can even cut Facebook out of it altogether. Just go to the global news site, screen capture the headline and whatever still image they have there, post that on your Facebook as your image, and then yeah, you can still post a link to global news, CTV. It's just they won't allow it to play, is what it is. So there's ways around it.
You can also put it in your comments.
Yeah, exactly.
I've done the screenshot before, but I didn't know if I could put links in, because I had a story about me and I couldn't share it on Facebook.
Super frustrating.
It is.
Very.
It is. Yeah, there is one single human on the planet that you can point your finger at and say it's his fault, and that is Mark Zuckerberg.
I thought you were talking about the big guy.
Oh.
Just the guy who thinks he is the.
Yeah, exactly. The guy that's pretty sure he should trade places with the guy. So yeah, there's ways around it. It would be great if Facebook stopped throwing a 3-year-old temper tantrum and just started doing what they should do ethically and morally and business wise.
Yeah, I found that ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. And it was tough for us, right? Because we have people calling from the newsroom. Why aren't you guys doing it? I'm like, Mark.Zuckerberg at Facebook.com, direct all comments to there. Like, this has nothing to do with us. So, and then finally archive the story. Some news sites will only let stories live on their site for 4 or 5 years, right? And maybe that's more than enough time and you would be happy with 6 months, and after that it just kind of peters out. But say it's kind of like building an online resume for yourself, right? If there's a news story done about you, convert that to an MP4 and save those, because as you progress in your career and you're making future pitches, if you can go to, say, a funder and say, you want examples of some media coverage I've done before, like my stuff gets eyeballs, here's an example. You can have that digital file still, whether the news organization still has it on their site or not. You have it as your own file that you can just send to them and show them a catalog of making media coverage that ad.
And that's legal?
100%.
Wonderful.
100%. Yeah.
Is it within the sharing news?
Sorry, say again.
Is it within that sharing news clause?
I don't know like the exact legal clause, I don't know, but it is 100% legal to, like, you can, there's sites out there where you can plug in a web link and it'll convert it to an MP4 and you can download it on your computer, 100%. You can try to, and I know it sounds like a gray area, but I know legally it's not. You can't use it to profit, so you couldn't charge people separately to then view this video. But you can use it in a pitch if there's funding. Like, that's not a legal gray area. You can use that as long as you're not like directly profiting from the showing of that. So it's legal mumbo jumbo that is way above my pay grade, but you can use it for self promotion.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can set up a Google folder
Mm.
with your name.
Yep.
And so you're like, I missed it or I can't find it. Basically, Google will deliver it to your email with a link so that you can go there and capture it. It's so simple to set up.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, you go Google and Google Words,
Yeah.
what is that?
Oh yeah.
And then it'll take you to a page and you just say, I want my name plus Lethbridge plus art.
Yeah.
And it will, any articles that comes up about you will be sent to your page.
Yeah.
Or your needs.
Yeah, you'll get an alert saying, here's
That's
where the.
Thank you.
We used to use that as a good tool in news when we had a really big story and we wanted to see how far it would reach before there were now much simpler programs that will do that work for you. But we used to do that and set up, so the story that a lot of people know of when that police officer parked on top of a live deer to see the best way to deal with that situation apparently. We were the first ones to get that, so I set up a Google News alert to see, and that went like international, we like European news broadcasts, portraying stuff on it and everything, so really put our city in a great light. But yeah, it's a great way to track. If you have something that's out there in the public sphere, it's a great way to track how much reach it gets.
And it's free, so you don't need a big service. So, there's none of us have money for that.
Yeah, except you guys.
Yeah.
We spend our money on artists
Yeah.
and not such organizations that are not Lethbridge.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
And just to put it out in the public sphere, that is not me disparaging our local police service. They do a phenomenal job. I have a criminology diploma when I was going to be a police officer. every organization has moments they probably wish they could take back, and that just happened to be one that was, yeah, in the news world was very, very big, so. No, I don't want anyone leaving here thinking one of the messages was LPS is bad, because that is certainly not my message in the least. So that's kind of it. I know we've been asking questions as we go along. My email address is right there. Obviously, the folks at the AAC are a phenomenal resource, and while your best first reach out. But if anybody ever has a question about anything that we've talked about, or same thing, if you go home, you're like, oh, I should have asked this. Fire me an email. I'm happy to chat and provide answers where I can.
Okay, thank you so much, Liam, and thank you for joining us, everyone. We truly appreciate your support for the arts here in Sikohkitok, and Gidagiramatsun Ochbua. Thanks again. Okay, thank you so much, Liam, and thank you for joining us, everyone. We truly appreciate your support for the arts here in Sikohkitok, and Gidagiramatsun Ochbua. Thanks again.